If you live in any of these 25 states, your weekend just changed, and not in a good way. I'm not talking about a little flurry outside your window. I'm talking 6 to 8 inches of snow, life-threatening ice, and wind chills of 30 below zero, all arriving within the next 48 hours. It is Friday, February 27th, 2026, and y'all, winter is absolutely not done with us yet. We've got a train of storms lining up back-to-back snow, ice, severe weather, and each one feeds directly into the next. Both the European model and the American GFS are locked in on this, and when both models agree, you pay attention. So here's what I need you to do, stick around, because I'm breaking this down city by city, region by region. Drop your city in the comments right now. I've got a specific breakdown for where you live coming up in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about what went down last night, because Thursday's severe weather across the southeast hit exactly as forecast. The Storm Prediction Center had a slight risk across central Mississippi into western Alabama, and those storms showed up and showed out. We're talking quarter to half dollar size hail and 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts tearing through central Alabama that is nothing to mess around with. That line pushed from southern Mississippi through Alabama into western Georgia and South Carolina before finally weakening after midnight. Some areas picked up 2 to 3 inches of much-needed rainfall, honestly a relief for a lot of folks down there who have been desperate for it. The rough news: those storms fizzled before reaching northern Florida, and Florida stays critically, painfully dry going into the weekend. There's one brief bright spot for Florida tonight, a quick shot of showers moving through central Florida with potentially an inch of rain for Tampa Bay, Orlando, and Daytona Beach. But that rain is gone by Saturday morning. And then it is right back to bone-dry conditions through the first 10 days of March. Florida. I know that's frustrating to hear, but hang tight, because I'll get back to what March looks like for you a little later in this video. All right, now, here is where things get really wild, because right now we have got two completely different Americas happening at the exact same time. In northern Illinois today, low 70s. Tons of sunshine. Felt like an April afternoon, genuinely beautiful across the Midwest. Chicago hit 71 degrees today, Kansas City pushing upper 60s, St. Louis flirting with 70 in late February. That is absolutely wild. Meanwhile, just 800 miles to the northwestern Canada dropped 40 degrees in the last 24 hours. 40 degrees in one day. Same continent, same Friday afternoon. A 40-degree crash up north, and that wall of Arctic air is now heading straight for us. Alaska is locked down in frigid cold. Western and central Canada frozen solid, and that Arctic air mass has already started its southward push as we speak. So, if you're in the Midwest soaking up that warmth right now, genuinely enjoy it, because this is the last gasp before everything flips hard. On radar right now. A clipper system is pushing through the northern plains with light snow from the Dakotas through the upper Midwest. This is a nuisance event, a dusting to maybe an inch for the Dakotas. Minnesota and Wisconsin, not the big story, but it absolutely sets the table for what's coming. Down in the southeast, heavy showers and thunderstorms are rolling off the Gulf into Tampa Bay right now. Gainesville down through Ocala getting hit pretty good. And way up near Montana and Calgary, snowfall is already diving south with that cold air mass, and folks, all of this is directly connected. A warm pocket over the Midwest, a wall of Arctic air from Canada, Pacific moisture riding in from the west, and they are all about to collide at once. Anytime you get that kind of clash in the atmosphere, it doesn't just spell weather, it spells serious. Multi-day, widespread weather trouble. So let's talk Saturday, because Saturday is when that Arctic front arrives and things start getting real. And they get real fast. Around 6 to 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Clipper snow starts overspreading North Dakota and eastern South Dakota, and it sticks quickly with those plunging temperatures. By Saturday afternoon, that snow is rolling into Wisconsin and Michigan 1 to 3 inches for most spots. Isolated 4-inch totals possible if it really cranks. Further south, spotty rain showers develop across the Ohio River Valley, Louisville, Evansville, Cincinnati. You're looking at rain going into Saturday evening. Now look at this temperature map for Saturday afternoon, because this right here is what's been keeping meteorologists up at night. Upper 60s in St. Louis, not even hitting the mid-20s in Madison, Wisconsin. That is a 45-degree gap within just a few hundred miles. You want to know what actually feeds a dangerous winter storm? That tight temperature gradient right there is exactly it. That is the fuel. Warm, moist air slamming headfirst into a wall of dense Arctic cold, and the atmosphere has to do something with all that energy, and what it does ain't pretty. What it does, starting Sunday. March 1st is going to affect 25 states and tens of millions of people across the country. This is the main event, the weekend winter storm arriving Sunday, March 1st through Tuesday, March 3rd, and here's how it plays out. The setup is a classic overrunning scenario. Arctic high pressure locks down the northern tier, while Pacific energy and Gulf moisture ride up and over that cold air at the surface. Warm air from the south meets that dense cold air from the north, and the result is a wintry mess stretching from the Mississippi Valley all the way to the I-95 coast. Here's the thing everyone needs to understand about this storm. This is crucial. The track makes all the difference in the world. Small shifts in where this storm tracks can mean the difference between 6 inches of snow and mostly rain. That is how sensitive this particular setup is. Forecasters have narrowed it to 2 scenarios, and neither one is what you'd call friendly, but they lead to very different outcomes for a lot of cities. High end. The ingredients come together perfectly, and a corridor of 6 to 8 inches of snow stretches from the Ohio Valley right to the I-95 coast. Low end 1 to 3 inches of snow falls in the same region, but with significantly more sleet, freezing rain, and plain old rain mixing in. The Weather Prediction Center says this is not going to be a blockbuster storm, but plowable snow and genuinely dangerous ice will absolutely occur somewhere in this zone. And here is where the most serious concern sits right now, the Interstate 70 corridor and the Ohio River Valley. Freezing rain and sleet in that zone, and the WPC literally uses the words life-threatening road conditions, so this is not something to take lightly. Real quick, which scenario do you think is coming for your area? The heavy snow or the icy mess? Vote in the comments. I genuinely want to hear from you. Now let's time this thing out day by day, because this is a multi-day event, and you need to know exactly when your worst conditions are actually hitting. Sunday. Snow and mixed precip break out across the Midwest first, Iowa and the Des Moines corridor seeing the early development of this whole system. Sunday into Monday. Wintry weather spreads to the Ohio Valley. Chicago picks up a couple inches. Detroit and Indianapolis enter the accumulating snow zone. Monday into Tuesday, the storm reaches the northeast I-95 corridor. The big cities get their answer, and Boston, New York, and Philly find out which scenario they're in. Late Monday into Tuesday, a second system reloads across the mid-Mississippi Valley, because apparently one storm wasn't enough for Mother Nature this week. That follow-up runs warmer with more rain coverage. Though wintry weather is still possible from the Midwest to the Northeast, yeah, it just keeps going. All right, let's get into the city-by-city breakdown now, and I need you to find your city in here, because this is where it gets personal for you. Northeast. Let's start in Boston, because Boston has already been through the ringer this week and is absolutely not catching a break. 275,000 customers were without power in Massachusetts after the blizzard of 2026, and cleanup across the state is still actively happening right now. On top of 2 to 3 feet already on the ground. Boston now faces another potential 6 to 8 inches of new snow arriving Monday into Tuesday. That is a serious problem. Low end puts Boston at 1 to 3 inches with rain mixing in along the coast either way. Boston Logan is going to have a rough time with delays and cancellations. Providence. Rhode Island still trying to recover from an all-time record 37.9 inches from the blizzard of 2026, and now another round is already knocking on the door. 37.9 inches, all-time record, and winter is coming back for a follow-up shot less than a week later. That is genuinely brutal for the folks in Providence. For interior New England, Burlington, Albany, Manchester, Saratoga Springs, Portland, Augusta. This is where the highest snow totals of the entire event potentially land. We could be talking close to half a foot for some of those interior spots by the Tuesday-Wednesday time frame, but it likely starts as snow, flips to ice, then to rain. So timing is everything. New York City. The I-95 corridor from New Jersey through Connecticut is squarely in the zone on both the high-end and the low-end scenario. No wiggle room there. Philadelphia Storm Track is everything for you. High-end gives you significant snow accumulation. Low-end gives you a cold, sloppy rain with some wintry mixing at times. Now here is the contrast that really puts this whole thing into perspective, while Boston is dealing with snow on top of nearly 3 feet of existing snowpack. Dallas is sitting at 72 degrees and sunny this Saturday with temperatures 15 to 20 above normal. Same country, genuinely a different planet weather-wise. And that temperature divide between the frozen north and the warm south is literally the engine driving every single storm we are tracking right now. Swinging down to the mid-Atlantic Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, both watching closely for snow or ice possible arriving by Monday, depending on that final storm track. If the storm slides south like the GFS suggests, the mid-Atlantic gets heavier snow and ice if it stays north. More plain rain forecasters are still wrestling with that call. West Virginia sits squarely in the freezing rain and sleet corridor on most model solutions. I-70 corridor through western Maryland flagged as the most dangerous icing zone in the country this event. Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia, all three remain in that ice threat zone through early next week, with Virginia staying on the warmer rain side on the southern track solutions. Heading over to the Midwest and Ohio Valley, and look, this is ground zero. This is the epicenter. This is where the storm is going to be felt the absolute hardest. The Arctic front slams through Saturday and temperature drops are going to be dramatic 30 to 40 degree crashes over just 12 to 18 hours in some spots. Wind chills in the northern Midwest plunge to 20 to 30 below zero across North Dakota. Minnesota and upper Michigan frostbite on exposed skin in as little as 10 minutes. Minneapolis wakes up Saturday to single-digit temperatures, wind chills near 30 below zero. It's not just cold, it is dangerously, legitimately cover every inch of skin cold. Bismarck and Aberdeen looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow this weekend. That is a pretty solid and reliable bet based on the current blend of models. Green Bay and Madison pick up that clipper snow Saturday afternoon 1 to 3 inches before the main storm event follows up going into early next week. And here is the wildest temperature story of the entire weekend. Chicago hits 71 today, and by Monday could be dealing with accumulating snow and dangerous wind chills. A 50-plus degree swing in less than 72 hours in Chicago. That right there is late February 2026 doing exactly what it does best. Detroit and Indianapolis both sit in the accumulating snow zone for Sunday into Monday. Not a blockbuster total, but enough to make travel genuinely messy and dangerous. Cincinnati and Louisville. You two are right on that critical knife-edge transition zone where snow to the north flips to dangerous ice to the south. Watch your local forecast like a hawk on this one. Kansas City and St. Louis are both watching that freezing rain and sleet threat closely. You're in that I-70 corridor zone where conditions can deteriorate fast and without much warning. Cleveland and Pittsburgh sit right on the edge of that rain-snow-ice transition. Northern Ohio and western Pennsylvania need to watch the Monday timing very closely. Columbus and the Ohio River Valley, from there down through Huntington, the WPC is most focused on this zone for the most dangerous icing of the entire storm event. Quick check-in right here still with me. Drop your city in the comments if you haven't already and tell me what you're seeing out your window right now. Heading over to the southeast, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Atlanta all picked up some welcome rainfall last night before those storms weakened after midnight. Charlotte and the Carolinas mostly rain for the main event this weekend, but keep a side eye on that GFS model trying to push some freezing rain along I-40 northbound into Virginia on Monday. That is a bit of an outlier right now, but it is absolutely not off the table. A sneaky little ice event along the I-40 corridor is worth watching as we get closer. Memphis and the mid-Mississippi Valley. You're in the zone for snow and freezing rain to develop Sunday before the system pushes east. Stay locked into your local forecasts closely. Now swing into the southern plains and west, and y'all, this almost feels like a different country in terms of weather right now. The contrast is that extreme. Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Austin all sitting warm, dry, and honestly pretty pleasant this weekend with temps 15 to 20 above normal across the board. Oklahoma City, similar story. Enjoy that sunshine this weekend because the pattern is about to make a hard flip on you by midweek and it is going to get active. Phoenix and the desert Southwest pushing into the 90s. Los Angeles and San Diego, warm and sunny, record warmth expanding right across the entire Southwest this weekend. Colorado, totally different vibe from the rest of the West. Denver and Colorado Springs looking at significant early March snowfall. finally getting some action after a relatively quiet winter. The Rockies and Cascades continuing to pick up heavy mountain snow, solid news for snowpack and ski resorts that had been watching the drought situation nervously. Portland and Seattle staying dry as that West Coast ridge remains locked in, and California drought deepening with no meaningful relief looking likely in the near term. And real quick on the wildfire side, the Ranger Road fire in the Southern Plains is sitting at over 312,000 acres, with dry and breezy conditions keeping fire weather risk elevated today. All right, we've covered the storm. We've done the city breakdown. Now I need to tell you about what happens after this weekend, because that's honestly where things get truly serious. There is something significant happening in the upper atmosphere right now, a major pattern shift, and it is about to flip the entire script on the month of March. All winter long, the polar jet has been the dominant player bringing that northwest flow, the Arctic air, the blizzards. All of it has been relentless this season. But as we flip the calendar to March, the subtropical jet is cranking up hard, and when the subtropical jet takes over as the dominant driver, everything changes. The subtropical jet taps into Gulf moisture and East Pacific moisture, cranks up the dew points and storm energy, and that is the exact recipe for severe weather season to begin. Add to that the ENSO cycle shifting from La Niña to neutral. Gulf sea surface temp running above average, the ingredients for an active severe weather season are loading up fast. Both the European and American GFS models in full agreement, wave after wave of energy rolling across the country from next week onward, not letting up anytime soon. And here is the precipitation signal that has been staring forecasters in the face for days now, and it is not subtle. Not even a little bit. Well, above average precipitation locked in from Texas all the way up to southern Michigan, and that corridor has been absolutely consistent in the models for days running. Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Texas. Some areas could see over 6 inches of rainfall in just the first 10 days of March alone. And that is the conservative estimate from the national blend of models. Isolated totals could push toward 10 to 12 inches in some spots within that same 10-day window. When you get that kind of rainfall on a roughly every 48-hour cycle, round after round, hitting the exact same areas, flash flooding stops being a possibility and starts being a probability. The marginal risk for excessive rainfall is already flagged from the Ozarks of Missouri through downstate Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, northern Kentucky, and into West Virginia for midweek. Meanwhile, and this is the part that is really getting forecasters' attention, severe weather season is about to come alive. And it is coming earlier than usual this year. Here is the setup that has meteorologists paying close attention: spin and vorticity crossing the Rockies. Warm, moist air building hard out of the Gulf. A sharp cold front crashing into it. You've got spin. You've got cold air crashing in from the west. You've got warm, humid air from the south. Basically everything the atmosphere needs to get absolutely rowdy all stacked up at once. The Storm Prediction Center has already 6 days in advance issued a slight risk for severe weather for next Wednesday, March 4th. That risk covers the Red River Valley from Oklahoma into North Texas, and yes, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is sitting right in that zone. Dallas, you went from 72 and sunny this Saturday to a severe weather watch day by Wednesday. That right there is the March pattern arriving in full force. The CFS version 2 model showing enhanced severe weather potential from Texas up through Missouri in the March 5th through 11th window. That is an entire week of elevated risk. The Mississippi Valley from Texas to Missouri is in the bullseye for what could be a legitimate, large-scale outbreak of severe storms during that stretch. The European ensembles showing severe weather probabilities really spiking for Thursday and Friday of next week across Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. These probabilities are showing up more than 10 days out, and when a signal this consistent shows up that far in advance across multiple models, you absolutely take it seriously. It is March, not May, so the severe weather potential may be somewhat scaled down from peak tornado season, but early season outbreaks are real. And this setup demands respect. And the pattern doesn't even stop there. The severe weather threat then shifts east of the Mississippi River by the March 10th through 15th window. Tennessee Valley. Ohio Valley, you need to have this circled on your calendar and be watching closely as we get deeper into mid-March. Both flash flooding and severe weather risks escalate. The second week of March shows a ridge building in the east bringing warmth. A trough digging out west bringing cold. Right where those clash in the middle is exactly where the action is. North Texas through the Ohio River Valley. Across Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, this corridor is going to see a whole lot of wet and stormy weather through the second week of March. And for the northern tier, don't you dare think winter is packing it up just because the calendar flips snow opportunities. Stay alive through mid-March across the northern U.S. and into the Rockies. Here is something that really puts the southeast situation in stark perspective. While the Mississippi Valley is getting absolutely drenched with 6+ inches of rain, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida run completely dry through the entire first 10 days of March. Drought deepening on the East Coast while flash floods threaten the middle. Welcome to March 2026. Before we wrap this whole thing up, one more number that genuinely stopped me in my tracks today. And I want to make sure you hear it. Providence. Rhode Island set an all-time snowfall record this week, 37.9 inches from a single storm, and they are now looking at another round arriving Monday. 37.9 inches, all-time city record, and winter is coming back with a follow-up punch less than a week later. That is genuinely rough, and those folks deserve our thoughts. Same for Boston, 275,000 customers lost power this week. Cleanup still going on across Massachusetts. And another storm is knocking before the first one is even cleared up. All right, let me give you the cleanest possible summary before we land this thing, because there is a lot going on, and I want you leaving here knowing exactly what matters for you. Tonight and Saturday, enjoy the Midwest warmth because it ends fast. Arctic front arrives Saturday. Wind chills hit 30 below in northern Minnesota and the Dakotas. Bundle up. Saturday, clipper snow, 1 to 3 inches across the Dakotas. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Dangerously cold northern tier. Frostbite risk is very real. Check on your neighbors. Sunday, March 1st, the main winter storm begins. Iowa and Des Moines develop it first. The calendar literally flips from February to March in the middle of a snowstorm. Sunday into Monday, storm spreads to the Ohio Valley. Plowable snow across the Midwest. Dangerous. Potentially life-threatening ice developing in the I-70 corridor and Ohio River Valley. Monday into Tuesday. Northeast I-95 corridor gets hit. 6 to 8 on the high end, 1 to 3 on the low end. Major airport delays and cancellations across D.C., Philly, New York, and Boston. Late Monday into Tuesday. Second system reloads the mid-Mississippi Valley. Mostly warmer rain this round, but wintry weather still possible from the Midwest to the Northeast. Wednesday, March 4th, severe weather risk fires up across North Texas and Oklahoma. SPC already has this flagged 6 days out. Dallas, you are in the zone, be ready. March 5th through 11th, potential severe weather outbreak across the Mississippi Valley from Texas to Missouri. Flash flooding risk simultaneously building from Texas to the southern Great Lakes. Mid-March, severe weather and flash flooding threats shift east of the Mississippi. Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valley. Keep watching this space, it's not letting up. That is storm after storm after storm on a roughly 48-hour cycle snow. Ice, heavy rain, and severe weather back to back to back through the first 2 full weeks of March. Now here is what you actually need to do based on your region, because information only matters if you act on it before the storm arrives. Northern tier Minnesota, Dakotas, Wisconsin if you've got elderly neighbors or family. Check on them Saturday morning. 30 below wind chills are genuinely life-threatening for vulnerable people. Midwest and Ohio Valley. Prep your vehicle now. Ice scraper, traction sand or kitty litter, blanket and phone charger in the car. Sunday night into Monday is when conditions get dicey fast. I-70 corridor and Ohio River Valley. You are in the highest risk zone for life-threatening ice. Seriously ask yourself whether any travel Sunday night into Monday is truly necessary. Northeast. A second storm is hitting before the first one is even cleaned up in a lot of places. Make sure you have supplies stocked up, equipment ready, and check road conditions before you head out. Texas and Oklahoma. Severe weather season is arriving earlier than expected. Get your weather alert turned on right now and know your shelter plan before Wednesday gets here. Mississippi Valley. Flooding prep starts today, not when it's raining. Know your flood zone, know your escape route, And start watching those rainfall totals as we roll through early March. Florida. I hear you. The dry stretch has been brutal. There is some moisture potentially building back into the pattern toward mid-March, so hang tight, it is not going to be dry forever. We have covered a massive stretch of ground tonight, from a 40-degree temperature crash in Canada to a potential severe weather outbreak in Texas in the same week. From a 37.9-inch all-time snowfall record in Providence to 90-degree heat in Phoenix, same country, same weekend, completely different worlds. And that contrast, that clash between winter and spring fighting for control of the atmosphere, is the engine that drives the most active and potentially dangerous weather of the year. Here is something I want you to hold on to before you go. Everything I showed you about the March severe weather pattern is still evolving, and models are still refining the details. There is one signal showing up in the models for the back half of March that I haven't even touched yet in this video, and it is the kind of thing that genuinely changes the conversation. I'll break that down fully in the next update, but if you thought the first half of March looked wild, you are going to want to see what the long-range models are showing for the second half. Until then, stay weather aware, stay prepared, and drop your city below. Right now, tell me what you're seeing out there and what concerns you most heading into this weekend. Are you more stressed about the snow and ice hitting this weekend or about that severe weather window coming in the second week of March? Tell me in the comments. Let's talk about it. Stay safe out there. Folks, updates coming as this storm tracks closer and the models lock in their final solutions. See you in the next one.